A sausage roll of Sodom and Gomorrah corruption, a Marquis de Sade style warning of what happens to a society without a soul. Hi, my name's Ketevan. I am staying in the Alps this week in a tiny little village way high up in the mountains. I thought I would take this week to do a little reading vlog for Women in Translation Month. And so I went through my TBR, and unfortunately I only had about like maybe 8 different books in translation by women, which I was like, that's maybe something else to track on my giant spreadsheet. I chose this book out of, my 8 possibilities because it is something I had wanted to read when I picked it up and it just never happened. I haven't had it for too long. I've only had it for a couple of months, but I really do want to get to it, and it's very weird, so I think it'll make an interesting vlog because I have no idea what to expect other than literally what's on the back. It's called Pigtails by Marie Darrieussecq, I think is how you say it. Even my French partner wasn't sure. It is a French name, but it's like a very uncommon one. So Marie Darrieussecq wrote Pigtails in, I believe, 1996. And the English translation first came out in 1997. This copy is translated by Linda Coverdale from the French, and it's published by Faber and Faber. So you can see she signed it to someone called Barry. She signed her name and she drew a little pig for him. So very cute. And so I figured, if I end up hating this book, that's fine. But if I end up loving it, it'll be very cool to have a signed copy. So that's why I ended up purchasing it a couple months ago. And I think, I don't know. So I'll just read you the back. So, a stunning young woman lands a prized position as a masseur at a beauty parlor. She enjoys extraordinary success at bringing home the bacon, in part due to her rosy and increasingly irresistible backside, until she begins to metamorphose into a pig. So, yeah, obviously this is like magical realism and like very feminist, but I'm just so curious as to see what she does with it. Like, I mean, the premise, okay. Like, I mean, I don't think it sounds too novel, but then again, this one was written in the mid-90s, so maybe for its time, it was very novel. Darrieussecq is brutal, detached, and wonderfully economic from the Literary Review. So I do appreciate an economic writer. So, and it is very short. It's only 135 pages. And it's a pretty small book, like physically. So I think it'll be a really quick read. And I just think it'll be really fun to, I'm not sure if I want to do a lot of reading vlogs, but I think it'll be fun to kind of record my thoughts on this particular book just because it is so weird. And, I am trying to read more French literature, and I realized that like 80% of like famed French writers are men. So I have realized a lot with Women in Translation Month that I do need to make an effort to seek out French women writers in my quest to read more French literature. So this will be a good first step, and it'll be a nice, weird journey that I hope you enjoy taking along with me. But yeah, so I'm just gonna enjoy my week here. I'm teleworking, so I'm not, on full vacation, but I do have plenty of downtime and plenty of reading time. And yeah, I think I'll just enjoy reading this book in the mountains, and we'll see how it goes. So I'll check back in once I've maybe read. I guess I don't know. I'm not sure how to reading vlogs. I guess I'll just check in when I have something to say. I guess that's what you do, right? We'll see. Alrighty, so pigtails. I just finished the first 3 sections. It is very weird. It is very weirdly not explicit or graphic, but it is at the same time. So everything's implied. Nothing's really described in detail, but there's definitely a lot of stuff happening. A lot of sexual stuff, a lot of violent stuff, a lot of stuff. So, so yeah, the back is a little bit, I'd say not accurate, because it's not so much a masseur at a beauty parlor. That's the job she got, but she's actually like a sales girl who sells perfume and cosmetics. So the store has rooms with couches in it that you go in with the clients to give them demonstrations of the products, because apparently that helps them fully experience the perfume, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it's like sex work, fine. There's like a very weird cover for sex work. I don't know, maybe that's purposeful. So anyway, she thinks she's getting a part-time job working as a perfume girl at a beauty store, and very quickly she realizes like, oh, like sex work is an option here, and she happily starts. And so I am pretty sure I know where this is going. I think this is all a metaphor for trafficking. I mean, she isn't being trafficked in the traditional sense, obviously, but based on like her feelings and thoughts around it, it very much to me mirrors the thought processes of a trafficked person. So anyway, so I think that's where this is going in terms of like the overarching metaphor. But even if it's not going there, I think also that the reason she's turning into a pig is partially at least because that is one of the responses to trauma, and that is to sort of make yourself ugly, so that you will no longer be attractive. And that doesn't work, obviously, because predators will just like prey on vulnerable people, no matter what they look like. But that is a thought process that a lot of victims and survivors deal with. Oh, little kitty train coming. This town has like a little train. It's a car or truck, car. I don't know. It's a little like motorized train that like, I guess you can pay and take your kids on a little train ride around town. It's cute. Comes around like every couple hours or so. So one thing I am a little intrigued by is the depiction of Muslim people in this book. So in the very, very beginning, she meets a group of Muslim women at a water park, and they're really nice to her. Do you hear the shrieking? They're really nice to her, and she enjoys like spending a little bit of time with them in the changing room, and it's like a very nice, wholesome experience. And they're kind of wearing what, you know, I interpret as the like prerequisite for the burkini, which you know, is a bathing suit for Muslim women, and it's still banned in a lot of parts of France because France is still Islamophobic in many ways. And so for the 90s, I thought that was a very progressive sort of like representation of Muslim women. So then later on, one of the clients is a Muslim man, and not that he treats her any worse than other clients, but I mean, still, it sort of just seems a bit odd to like specifically mention, you know, that he's Muslim and also African. So I thought that was like a really, like, there was clearly a purpose to that, and I'm not sure what it was, because she actually like has to provide services off-site for him, because the manager specifically says it's like difficult for the store for there to be like black customers. And so I have ideas about what that means, but I don't want to like overinterpret either. But I mean, at some point, I still think that's sort of like a statement on France and how they treat foreigners, you know, one that I would agree with. So yeah, I'm just sort of intrigued to sort of see what she does with the rest of this, but so far, I'm enjoying it. Maybe enjoy is the wrong word, but, you know, my eyebrows are raising, not out of complete horror. One thing I will add is that a lot of random things seem to be happening, and I kind of can guess or infer what it represents, but also like if there's too much of that, I'm not sure I'm gonna love that, because it's like, yeah, I get it. The whole thing's a metaphor. It's all a metaphor. But like, I do want some of it to tie together in the end, and like, or there, you know, something to circle back to these like random moments. Like, but I have a feeling like it might just be like left as is. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, at this point in the book, like, you know, we're about like quarter of the way through. She's like already, you know, her skin is changing into being looking like more like a pig, and she's like getting a teat, which is like something she's very worried about. So yeah, so I guess I'll check in back tomorrow and take it from there. So I'm about halfway through. It's still just as wild as it was in the beginning. She's basically broken up with her boyfriend, or rather, like, her boyfriend broke up with her because he's becoming more and more disgusted with her as she transforms into a pig. So he kicks her out of the apartment, and she's basically homeless. But it kind of feels like the plot is only there just for the author to be able to insert like different metaphors of sexual violence and exploitation. So in that sense, I feel like the plot is minimal and artificial. I mentioned a couple times that like there are lesions on her face as the skin basically like turns over, and like the human skin sloughs off, and then the pig skin like is revealed underneath. I'm wondering if people don't think she has HIV or AIDS, really, at this point, if you have skin lesions. So because it's just, I don't know, the way that they're talking about the illnesses that they think she has, the language is like very similar to like language in the 90s about AIDS. And obviously AIDS is associated with sex work, especially in the 90s. So I'm just like wondering if this is also a little bit of a commentary on that as well. So far, no commentary other than people are horrible to people with AIDS, which is like, maybe in the 90s that was more revolutionary and more of like a statement, but it's like, yeah, they were. I think I talked about this earlier in the vlog, but like the race, the commentary on race and Islam and also race, it's continuing. So it is definitely like purposeful. But she is very often describing the race of the non-white characters, which is like, for 25 years ago, I think very normalized and like acceptable. Nowadays, I don't know if you could maybe get away with that as much, but essentially like she, you know, every time she meets a black character, usually they're minor characters, she doesn't even know their name or anything. She'll describe them by their race like constantly. But what I find odd, and she's definitely white, just to clarify, like based on the descriptions of herself, like she's white. But her boyfriend, I'm pretty sure, is also black. So, but she never mentions that. She never describes him as black. And I'm wondering if that's like a purposeful, like play on the author's part, because I mean, his name is Honore, and like I wasn't 100% sure, but I was like, that sounds like a black French name. Like I just wasn't sure why, because colonized peoples tend to, like, it's a thing to name their children the colonizers like classic names, you know. Nobody in France is really naming their children Honore, but then like the colonies will be, because it's just like, I'm not sure why that is, but it's a thing. So yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna read for today, because this, like, yeah, 30 pages at a time is pretty good pace for me, I think, because it's quite intense. And it's, like I said, the plot is so like artificially constructed. It's really kind of, it's sudden and it's very jarring. On the one hand, I understand why the author's doing that, because that is how it works. Like once you become traumatized and you're in an extremely vulnerable state, you know, these are the people that tend to be, you know, traumatized and exploited even more. So it is sort of this like cyclical, like downward spiral, you know, you can't stop it from happening. But also it's like within the actual text, there's like literally no respite. It's literally just like she wanders over there and then something bad terrible happens and she wanders over here. Like the only like, so I think that's all I'm gonna read for today. I'm gonna give myself a little break, read something a little lighter, something more relaxing. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. And I'll check back in tomorrow when I've read a little bit more. All right, so I have only read 10 pages, but quite a lot has happened. Let's see, where I left off, or where I started, was that she wanted to take a shower, so she got a hotel room and started to heal and started to sort of like recover herself and became less like a pig, I suppose. She mentions that she loses weight. Yeah, and like her skin gets better and she can stand up straighter. So I think she's like sort of becoming less and less like a pig. So this is partially because like, you know, she's safe and clean and well fed and so on and so forth. But what I find interesting is it's actually, I think, more to do with her relationship with the cleaning man at the hotel. So basically, eventually, she stays a few days and then like runs out of money to pay for the night. And then so she kind of makes like a quid pro quo deal with the cleaning man. He comes and like visits her twice a day, and then she can stay for free. All this I find interesting because he is Arab and does not speak French, only Arabic. And so they have an entire, like, I'll go ahead and say loving, it seems pretty loving to me, relationship without language. So I haven't actually mentioned this part before, but basically, like, one of the many varieties of sexual exploitation she experiences is that she's like, is it fair to say coerced? Maybe not coerced, but like definitely used for a photo shoot for a politician. And so anyway, he wins the election, but because he won the election, his policy of anti-immigration is in place now. So the police come to the hotel and arrest her cleaning man, and then she sees him on the news like being deported at gunpoint. I'm not sure if that's like a statement on the immigration policy of the 90s in France. Probably is. I mean, can't imagine if they were very great policies at that point in time. So the reason I kind of have the feeling she isn't super torn up about the Arab cleaning man getting deported is because she kind of frames it all as like, well, what happened to me, you know, as a result, and which is fair, you know, but also like, you know, she doesn't say she misses him. She just immediately says like, well, since he, the politician, since he deported, you know, him, surely he can offer me a job now. So I don't know if that's like a commentary on white feminism before like white feminism became like a real buzzword, but it sure sounds like that. So so yeah, I think I'm gonna read more today, just maybe not right now because this is, I think, better digested in smaller chunks. And I mean, everything I just talked about literally happened in 9 pages. So I think it's just like a lot to digest, and the plot is just breakneck speed.
And also, as you can hear, the traffic is like out of control right now because it's like rush hour, I guess. I don't know. We're on the main street in town, but like this is the first like real post-COVID time I've been here. And it's very crowded and I don't like it. I think I'm gonna only come back during the low season because it's just so busy during the high season. And it's not my favorite. I kind of liked when it was abandoned. Nobody came up here. So anyway, I am still just around halfway through, and I will come back later for more. Hello, I'm back. I think the last time I left off, I had been reading in the morning and I said I was going to read more that evening and come back, and I did not. It's actually been a couple of days, so that's fine, whatever. It's supposed to be like, you know, half vacation. But I'm back and I'm going to be reading, and I'm also going to be sipping my Je ne puis, which is, I don't know, what is it? It's like a liqueur, I guess. Je ne puis de tradition de cordial digestif du grand-père. So like your grandfather's digestive cordial, which is like, I don't know. It's like made from like a flower that grows on the Alps, and it's nice, but it's very strong. So we only like have 1 or 2 drinks every time we come up here, but then we buy a bottle and then like leave it back home, and then so we have lots of bottles of this stuff, but we never drink it. So yeah, I'm drinking a little bit right now because why not? What is the alcohol percentage? Just 40% alcohol. So yeah, it's very strong. But anyway, I'm going to read and come back when I have something to say. Okay, ew. So she's like in the van with the people who are like paid by the government to help homeless people, right? And they're telling her all about these different jobs that she can get. And so one of the things they say is that if she like knows the right people, she can become a wet nurse in a ritzy neighborhood. Cool. That's basically like a form of selling your body, just to like clarify. But anyway, then it says the driver told me that if I needed to get pregnant to become a wet nurse, he would volunteer his services. Okay. There was one very interesting scene that reminded me of, I guess it was sort of like an homage to Marquis de Sade. I haven't actually read any of his books because you don't need to. Like, really, nobody needs to read that. So anyway, she gets brought to a party and she, as a pig, and she is like the entertainment of the party. And people are riding her and like entertained by her, and she's thinking, this is fantastic, like I'm the belle of the ball. Again, unaware for exploitation as it's happening. And then after people start getting bored of her, the host of the party brings out the second part of the entertainment, which is a group of children that they all, at the party, the guests of the party all rape, and I don't even know how to describe it. Like, 'cause it's not just that they're raped, it's that they're like cut up and brutalized in a way that like words can't even describe. Like, it's not like, again, it's not explicit, but she'll just be like, oh yeah, there's a girl hanging from the chandelier and her bowels are hanging out. And you're like, oh, I thought this was just like a rape scene, because again, it's not very like specific in like the details, but then like just little things that our character will notice, you're like, oh, okay. So this actually reminded me of what I'd read in my like little research around sex work legal aspects in France. It wasn't until 1988 that it became a crime for a French resident to leave France and procure sex from a minor. So what people would do is they would go to other countries, you know, mostly developing countries, very poor countries, and exploit minors there and then come home. And that's what the abuser in Consent did from Vanessa Springora's book. This was like a thing that like wealthy French elites did frequently, and no one really batted an eye at it. They didn't even bother making a law about it until 1998. You know, I think people kind of think, oh, Sade, that was like hundreds of years ago, and it was sort of like a little nudge, like it still happens today. Like it's not, you know, a thing that's disappeared. So I'm almost done. I have about 25 pages left, so I guess I'll check in at the end unless something else blows my mind and I have to comment on it. Okay, so I only have 10 more pages left. But basically this whole last section that I've been reading is that she is with this guy, and it's the happiest time of her life because he, should I spoil this? Yeah, because I'm not telling you who he is. He's a werewolf, so he like gets her. It's almost like a metaphor for PTSD. She quickly goes back and forth between being a pig and being a human based on her mood. So if she's nervous or scared or angry, or just upset in general, she becomes a pig. But when she's calm and chill and happy and like no issues, then she turns back into a human. Done. Okay. That is a wild and very unexpected ending. Like, truly. So yeah, this definitely is about how, you know, the trauma of exploitation and like becoming a pig is like her reaction to that. But then after a while, when she meets the guy that she really loves, she and who loves her for who she is, the werewolf guy, she is able to control it more. So it's a happy ending in the sense that she loves her life as it is, but it is definitely a sad ending because obviously I'll just tell you, she chooses to live as a pig most of the time. Society has failed her in the sense that like she has no desire to return back to human society. So that is sad in that sense. But as a character, she's happy. So yay.
Hi, so I am back for the end of this vlog. I want to finish it up. I am long since back home in Paris. I did finish reading Pigtails like in the Alps, but on our last day, we decided to go on this hike, and my partner planned it out, and he said, oh, it's like 6 kilometers, you know, max 6 hours. It won't be, like, it's a very easy hike, and it won't be a big deal. And it was a very easy hike. It wasn't like, I didn't find it difficult, but, but it actually ended up being 18 kilometers, because he was just guessing. Basically, the last day was super hectic and I didn't really get a chance to like sit and film my final thoughts on this book. So, final thoughts on this book. Did I have fun reading this? Yes. Not because of the topic. The topic was very heavy and depressing and like, I mean, you saw from some of the clips, I'm sure, in this vlog of me just going, ugh, like all the time as I was reading sentence by sentence. But what I did enjoy was kind of like really picking it apart. It very much, for me, was a very fun exploration of France's approach to these subjects because I have been a feminist for like more than 15 years. I've worked in, women's rights, women's health for many years. So these ideas aren't new to me, but I will say that like the vast majority of everything I've consumed in terms of feminism and women is very heavily Americanized. I think people like to think of France as this panacea of like sexual liberation, and I'll link to some of my other videos where I kind of like bash on that idea because it's definitely not true. France is just as misogynistic towards women as any other country. It's just in a slightly different way. That's all, people. But it was really fun for me to sort of pick apart each metaphor and each like representation and symbolism and all that good stuff that Darrieussecq was doing. And was she successful? In the sense that, most of the things at least I picked up on made sense. It like gelled for me. But in terms of an actual story, no. I said this throughout the vlog, I think this story in terms of plot is super minimal. And that's because the plot is really just a device for her to spew her political opinions. I agree with her political opinions, I think, the majority of them at least. But it wasn't very artfully executed. I mean, not that satire should be subtle, obviously, but like, I don't know, there wasn't really any character development necessarily outside of the metaphor of like healing and trauma and growth and change. So yeah, I would say that this is definitely for folks who want to get an idea of what French feminism might be about, get a little sprinkling of French culture. If you're just looking for like a weird book to sort of like get your mind like churning with ideas and what does that mean? What does this mean? And could it be that? Is this connected to that? Like this is definitely a thinker. Like you're definitely gonna be thinking as you read this book. So that is primarily why I enjoyed it. I'm glad I read this for Women in Translation Month. I'm glad I read this before I started hating on men this month. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link the video that references that. But I read this in the first half of the month and all that drama and ridiculousness happened in the second half of the month. So I'm glad I read it like in a non-man hating mood. If you're hating men currently, like in a mood, this is just gonna make you hate men even more. So maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want to hate men. Go by all means. Pick this one up for that. It's definitely not going to give you any hope for our future. I know if you've watched the vlog this whole time, it may seem like I've spoiled a lot, but like that's what's so wild is I've barely spoiled any of it. Like even with all the details I've given, that's like maybe 10% of the book, like maybe. And the ending is very explosive in terms of one particular thread of plot line that had obviously been happening throughout the book. And I haven't mentioned any of that in the whole vlog. So like I definitely didn't ruin it for you. The ending will definitely be a surprise, but I think it is worth a read overall. Yeah, I do think it's worth reading if you're in the mood for something like this. The vibe of this is definitely anti-sex work, like in the sense, not anti-sex work, but like sex work as exploitation. And it is for the vast majority of people doing sex work. It's either not sex work and it's straight up trafficking, or it is sex work that someone is being coerced into doing. It is true that the minority of folks who are like willingly, happily engaged in sex work, but the vibe of this book is definitely like all sex work is coercive, all sex work is damaging, all sex work, and that's definitely, I think, a popular vibe from the 90s. Like that's, I think, how most feminists felt. That's certainly not how many I don't know, has there been a survey? I don't think a lot of feminists today necessarily agree with that, including myself. I'm definitely pro sex work if someone isn't feeling coerced into that, of course. And even if they are coerced, I mean, yeah, that's not great, but also like people are also coerced into working in coal mines, which then eventually kill them. And no one seems to care about that, you know? And I said in the beginning that it was signed, and if I was happy with it, I would be happy that I got a signed copy. And I am happy that I have a signed copy, even though it's for Very. So anyway, thank you so much for reading Pigtails along with me. Let me know if you are interested in picking it up, if you have read it. Let me know your thoughts. If you have any recommendations for French women translated into English, also please would love to hear them. Put them down in the comments below. And until next time, bye.